Right then, Dreamcatcher. This is Lily on the bottom right, and up in the top left it is Ollie. So these two are one game apiece, I believe. I don't know whether they're playing best of 5, best of 3. I don't know what they're at. I did sort of suggest best of 5s for the quarterfinals, but I don't know whether these guys will be doing that. So this might be a decider, just can't tell. Yeah, there's an Overlord. Handsome looking creature that is, isn't it? Let's just, yeah, there he is, going about his business. Little bits of puffy smoke coming from him and stuff, like quite the beast, the Overlord there. That is going to make its way across the map ever so slowly, and going to do a little bit of scouting on the other side of the map. Ollie is going for the wall off on the low ground here, and yeah, sure, good plan. Lily, hatch first, so hopefully we're going to see something a bit different than this now display. To be honest, in the last couple of games, it's not really achieved that much. I mean, in the last game, yeah, it was a bit of an annoyance for Ollie, but ultimately it was the 200 supply Hydra army that ended the game, and would have, whether those swarm hosts had done anything or not, because ultimately all they did was kill a few workers, but Ollie had an enormous bank by the end of the game anyway. So we'll see if it's going to be different this time. There's a forge here right up in the corner. It's almost like he's trying to hide that. I don't know if he is or if that's just a random location. So I'm curious to see what that's going to be for. It's pretty unusual to get a forge this quickly, so it could be, and I wouldn't mind seeing that, some sort of +1 time in attack, which can work out really well. You get the really early forge, you get +1 started as soon as you can, you chrono it out, and you go across the map with a bunch of upgraded units before your opponent has got any upgrades, and you try and get that hurt on them as soon as possible. This worker for Ollie is perhaps gonna have a bit of a look around, is he? Yeah, hasn't been in the base yet, so yeah, this is the first venture into the Zerg base. So sees this really early lair, and to be honest, if I saw the lair before the third like this, before the natural's even vaguely saturated, I'd be thinking to myself, this is possibly going to be a repeat of what we've seen in the last couple of games, or it could be a sort of rush to muta, but yeah, those would be the options. But yeah, very hard to afford lair tech when you just don't have the bases, when you've only basically mined on one base. So when you're playing Zerg, generally, you focus on your economy first. You'd be amazed at what you can do with just lings and queens. You can see off an awful lot of stuff. So get that economy up and thriving before you worry about lairs, and definitely before you worry about infestation pits. So the infestation pit is going to enable swarm hosts, and it looks like that's what Lily is going for again. Photon cannon, side core, everything fine over here. I'd like to see Ollie get a bit more aggressive than he has done in the previous games. There is going to be +1 armor coming out, and that's okay. But the key to success here really is going to be making sure, as this natural gets up and mining, making sure that you have got an appropriate number of gateways, making sure that you've got a sort of enough gateways to match your income so that you can really crank stuff out. I'd quite like to see have seen a stalker come out and chase this Overlord away, before, or at the very least plant the robo facility somewhere where the Overlord can't see it, because you're pretty much just signposting to your opponent, this is what I'm doing, I'm going robo. And it has been robo in the last couple of games, successfully in the first game, not so much in the second game. The big problem, of course, was that Ollie did push in and potentially could have won the game at that point. When he pushed in with the 2 Colossus and stuff, his opponent had very little to defend. The swarm hosts were on the other side of the map, but there was a slightly critical delay to the push. I don't know what he waited for, but he did wait, And more importantly than that, it just wasn't reinforced with anything. You know, with only 2 gateways at home, you just no reinforcements. When you do play Protoss, the key to a successful push is you get a warp prism out from your robo so that you can just warp in units anywhere in the map. And as you're pushing out, you make sure that you have dropped like literally 12, 15 gateways, a silly amount when you've got the sort of money that he had, so that when you get across the map, you can just open the warp prism and you can just crank out, oh look, there's another 20 charge lots. And that just, you know, being able to spam zealots like that just keeps your Colossus alive, keeps the damage dealers, the Colossus, the Immortals alive. And obviously, yeah, you can parade more across the map from your robo, but it takes a long time for them to walk across. Having that warp prism in position so that it can just instantly, so that you can just instantly warp in stuff, gateway units, is so helpful. Yeah. Okay, so the robo bay just finished up, and I would expect to see some Colossus starting to build. But you know, again here we've got more Nexuses than, oh no, we've got 3 gateways. All right, I take it all back. 3 gateways. You know, you can drive 3 get robo off a single Nexus. You've got 2 Nexuses. So as a bare minimum, double this up, 6 gateways and 2 robos as an absolute minimum. So here we go again with the Nidus play. Ollie doesn't see it just yet. Once this Nidus pops, the creep will start to spread and he'll very quickly realize where it is. Let's have a quick peek. There are 4 swarm hosts up at present, and it looks like they might just get the cancel on this Nexus, and that's slightly annoying. Aren't going to, because Ollie's just going to come in with a couple of Zealots and Stalkers, and to be honest, once you've distracted the Locusts, your best bet is actually just to run away from them and wait for those Locusts to time out. So he is going to shut this down. But again, this Overlord is going to be a proper pain. Ollie does see it, so I'd like to see him, you know, do a few things to help against this. A pylon here with a couple of cannons and a shield battery can certainly really help against those Locusts, but can also like chase away the Overlord as well. So I'd like to see some of that going on. If we look at the army supplies, Lily is ahead in army supply, but how much of that army can stand and fight? You know, it's 9 swarm hosts. They are useless in an actual engagement, because you just run away from them until the Locusts expire and then you go back in. So actual fighting units, Lily's got 2 queens and 4 lings. So this army of Ollie's, if he marches across the map right now, he just wins. It's as simple as that. Fighting this stuff is an error. Especially like that. No, not the Colossus. No. Yeah, that Colossus, man, that Colossus. With 18 health, it is now no longer the fighting force to be reckoned with that it was literally a few seconds ago. So a bit iffy or not if he does want to march across the map. But now's the time. He just needs to get in there and end this game, kill it, because the swarm hosts aren't going to stop. Lily's going to continue to pop out of the ground and send those Locusts into your base. So, you know, hanging around to fight them, leave some static defenses to soak up the damage, to mitigate slightly how much work they get done, and get your army. You've got 2 Colossus, get a 3rd one out, get it chrono boosted, get it rallied to the others, have another round of Zealots, another round of Stalkers or whatever, and just get across the map and get up in your opponent's face, get damage done. Because if you don't, Lily will run away with this game, because these swarm hosts will keep chipping away at you, and you're doing nothing offensive to get any work done on the other side of the map. So you see these Overlords about. You've got Stalkers, kill them. Just go and do these in. What, you know what I mean? Those are the bad guys right there. Like, seriously, go and kill them. Go and shoot them in the face. I mean, these guys, loads of Stalkers, one-shot these fools. And you know, the fewer Overlords there are on the map, the fewer problems you've got about these swarm hosts and these Nidus worms popping out. So it does look like Ollie is perhaps ready to go and have a bit of a march, or at the very least he's coming out into the center of the map. But look, they're not even on an attack move. All those, oh my goodness, so many there's so much supply just flying about in the middle of this map that actually, if Ollie killed it all, Lily'd be massively supply blocked. So this army needs to stick together. What you don't want is lings surrounding these stalkers. You know, Colossus trade well against the lings, but I don't know, there's too much here. Now that the swarm hosts are involved and you can't run, that's a real problem. So Lily cleans that up and makes it look pretty easy actually, and it shouldn't have been, because Ollie had the by far the better quality army, but turning up piecemeal like that is not what you want. You have to have zealots to tank as well, and you don't want to go so far under creep that you're going to get surrounded so that you can't run from the locusts. Running from those locusts is absolutely critical. So income wise, you know, both of these players have got very healthy economies. They're both up toward the 60 worker mark, which is great. So no reason for the production tabs to just not be completely full of stuff going on. You know, there's bank to be had, there's money coming in. So it's going to be 14 Hydras from Lily. That's an interesting choice. You know, Hydras are very squishy. You know your opponent's going Colossus. Hydras generally do not trade well against Colossus. If Colossus have got zealots out the front, the splash damage they do, Hydras are light, the splash damage they do just rinses through Hydras at a furious rate. But it's going to be Stargate play from Ollie. So, you know, my first order of business would be to get some stuff out, maybe some void rays to just clean up the overlords off the map, and that would be smashing. Even if the end point in mind is going to be one of sort of carriers and such, a few void rays in the meantime would just clean up this sort of thing and this sort of thing, and prevent you taking unnecessary damage from the swarm hosts. So Lily is going to come across the map with this. There are 9 swarm hosts still, and they are using up some of that supply. But it is a reasonable army difference between the two players at present. Let's have a quick look at the upgrades. So it's 2-2, these Hydras are 2-2. Meanwhile, the Protoss stuff is 1-2, and charge is done, which is such a critical upgrade. But there aren't actually very many zealots on the map. There's only 5 at present. So I hope I'm not seeing idle warp gates there while you've got money in the bank. Yeah, the Colossus, as I said, can do really quite well against Hydras, so that's not a bad thing at all to have. There's now a couple of Void Rays out. Now, Void Rays will not last long against Hydras. That's not a fight that you really want to take if you can at all avoid it. You know, if you are a Zerg and you know your opponent's going Void Rays, Hydras are your go-to. That's what you build. The Hydras, on the other hand, will not fare so well against overwhelming numbers of Protoss air. So once you get up to like crazy things like carriers and such, then you can think about taking on Hydras. But you need a hell of a lot of, you need a serious number advantage to have this many Hydras with just Void Rays. So Ollie moving forward a little bit, and actually this location is so fantastic defensively with these shield batteries and cannons that he does need to be a little bit careful. Of course, he doesn't know what we know. What you don't want to get is stuck here. To be fair, the same goes for his opponent. I would be destroying these rocks. Oh my goodness. What am I even watching? Why is this stuff not attacking? Yeah, let the Zerg come through that choke and let the Colossus just annihilate absolutely everything in sight. This is an awful engagement for the Zerg. This is horrible to watch. The only thing that is going reasonably well is that the Swarm Host Locusts got a bit of work done, but oh my word, Colossus doing splash damage on units concentrated into such a small area. Look at the way the army supply has dropped so rapidly. So that was nasty. And if I'm Ollie, I'm thinking about ending the game here. Yeah, in the production tab there are a lot more Hydras, but you know, Hydras aren't that good against Colossus. They're going to get a mincing, and yeah, I don't know. But where are the reinforcements for Ollie? There are none. There's nothing making its way across the map to help. There is literally nothing in production. There's one upgrade that's about to be finished up, but there's nothing else being built, whereas Lily has 10 Hydras in production. You know, this push could have been fantastically successful. Again, if there had been reinforcements, but there wasn't. You can't, you're sending an army on its own into enemy base, into the enemy territory. Well, the enemy is going to continue to produce things to try and defend. So if you're not replacing the units that you're losing then, aren't you? You will eventually get worn down and you will eventually get stopped. And that's exactly what we've seen happen. And there wasn't really any infrastructure damage done whatsoever. There was no bases lost. There wasn't even any workers killed. So I don't know about that at all. Now, the army supply, meanwhile, has completely reversed in favour of Ollie. There is a lot of that supply is, however, in things being produced. There are 3 Colossus being produced, and there are 3 Void Rays. There are a lot of Stalkers here. I'd much prefer to see Zealots sieve the gas for these Colossus and air units, and dump all the minerals into Zealots, because really you get on top of those Hydras. We saw how well the Colossus can fare against them. Yeah, fiddly diddly. Okay, so if you're Lily at this stage, what you need is something a bit tankier than just Hydra. I'd really like to see the Lurker Den come down and get a few of these turned into Lurkers, because those will fare really well against the Colossus. They've got range, they do well against the Zealots, they do well against everything on the ground, basically. Alternatively, even just some roaches, anything to add a bit of tank to this Hydra army. Now, this angle is a bit funny. You need to wait for those Colossus to get involved, but now that the Colossus are involved, it's hard to tell how this is going to go. It looks like it's going to go the way of the Protoss pretty heavily, to be honest. The Zealots out the front just make such a big difference. They just hold those Hydras back. I mean, the Hydras can't get shots on the Colossus, and the Colossus can just rain down damage from the back. But look, 12 Hydras in production, no units being produced for the Protoss. So let's not make this same mistake again. Be making stuff. Where are the 3 Colossus in production? You have 3 Robos. Where are the Void Rays that are in production? Keep that stuff coming. Don't think that just because you've egg-clicked across the map, the game is over and that your opponent is just going to stop building stuff. They're not. This is, however, with that said, beginning to look very ominous indeed. So the pool is about to go down, and actually, Lily just GG's out, which is a slight surprise. I mean, there was money in the bank. There's still 3 bases from which you can produce, and the Hydra Den is still up. I don't know. I feel like you could have worn this down, but arguably just not enough hatcheries to produce from. Well, yeah, interesting. I think, from my point of view, not enough production for the Protoss player, and for our Zerg player, just too much reliance on the swarm hosts, because they're just not it's too much of a 1-horse hit, really. Is that even a thing, a 1-horse hit? I don't know what I'm even talking about. I really need to go to bed. It's all your eggs in 1 beer can or something. Who knows? But yeah, on its own, it's unlikely to win you a game. It's a very powerful harass technique, but they don't win on their own. And just going pure Hydra, I don't know about that. You need something to tank for those Hydras. You need some Roach Ravager out the front of it that can take a few shots to the face and survive. You need an exit strategy. And when you see the Colossus, ideally maybe even some Corruptors, or possibly some Vipers or something like that to help out, so they can yoink those Colossus into range of the Hydras. Because otherwise, once there's Zealots out the front to keep the Hydras at bay, the Colossus just reigns supreme. Anyway, GG.